Hi guys, and welcome to episode 6 and the final episode of Train Sim Journey Series 3. And today we're on the Cornish Mainline. We're starting here at Plymouth via platform 5. We're doing the 1820 departure to Penzance. So we'll be calling at Liskeard, Bodmin Parkway, St Austell, Truro, Redruth, Camborne, St Erth and Penzance. Now, slight change of train that I originally was going to do, which was going to use a Class 43 HST, but I've had some few minor problems. So instead, I've had to swap it around with a Class 802 IET. In this case, my train is a 9-car, which would be 802 106. And I've set up most of the train already, so the only thing just have to do now is just open the doors before we get going after. Right, let's get the doors open. So for starters, the course of our line is actually not exactly the original as such, because the line that actually we're following was a slight was changed slightly over from back in the days when there was another line that used to go via places such as Devonport Kings Road, Albert Holt, Ford and Camel's Head Holt, which of course used to link up with the Tamar Valley Line a bit further on down at St Budeaux Victoria Road, which got closed in the 1960s, which actually was built by the London South Western Railway. Just about to pass through our first stop out of Plymouth, which is Devonport, which is served by local stopping services from Plymouth to Penzance, as well as also 1 every 2 hours services to Gunnislake via Bere Alston. You sometimes get a few London trains calling there, but only a few trains a day that call at Devonport. Just underneath Devonport Tunnel. Now about to pass through Devonport Dockyard. Just passed over the Coombe Viaduct. And there's the branch line just to the right that actually links up to the dockyard itself. Just passing through Coombe. Just crossing over the Western Mill Viaduct, and here's where the junction where the Tamar Valley Line will diverge towards St Budeaux Victoria Road, which is close by to the station we're about to pass through, St Budeaux Ferry Road. One slight thing about the Tamar Valley Line: only one train can use that line at a time, because from St Budeaux Victoria Road all the way to Bere Alston and Gunnislake, it's all token control. The only exception, then, obviously, of course, is at Bere Alston, where the points are switched by the guard. Now we go single line. One of 3 sections of single line on our road, and we cross over the Tamar Valley Line. Actually, we cross over it twice. The other one's a little bit further on from here. Got to slow right down to 15 miles an hour, because we're now crossing onto Coombe Viaduct, which crosses over the Tamar Valley Line, and we're also going to cross over disembarking Brunel's famous Royal Albert Bridge, which opened in May 1859. Bit of a sad story about that. The fact is, the Royal Albert Bridge that crosses over from Devon into Cornwall, as we're going to pass through Saltash in a minute, actually was Brunel's one of his last projects he ever worked on, because sadly 4 months after this was opened, he sadly passed away on September 15, 1859, after he suffered a stroke. He was only aged 53. It's quite sad. You've got the Tamar Road Bridge, which carries the A38. That opened in 1961. Well, originally, the original did. The one that got there was, I think it's only just been restored, I think. So we just passed through Saltash, just crossed over the Coombe by Saltash Viaduct. By the way, we also crossed over the River Tamar itself. Now this is where things are going to get a little bit tricky between here and our first stop at Liskeard. Obviously we've got two stations we have to pass through, which are St Germans and Redruth. Also, just to clarify one thing about the AO2 I'm using from the Armstrong Power Pack Class 800 AO2 pack, is that when they actually were doing it, they had a bit of a problem with getting the actual sounds of diesel power. So what they've done is they've just used natural aspirated sounds for the diesel engines. So a couple of things to note about the IETs in real life. They look the same on paper, but in practice, well actually, the other way around actually, in practice they look technically the same, but they're not. First of all, the 800s, most of them on Great Western Railway, were built over in Kusado, Japan. That would be the 800 side of things. But the 802s were built in Pistoia, Italy. Now originally Great Western Railway wasn't supposed to go for 802s, because originally we were supposed to go for Class 800s and Class 801s. Because originally we were going to use the Class 801s for services when the Great Western electrification project was going on. They were originally going to run them down to Swansea. That was until the electrification got cut back to Cardiff Central, and of course just before Chippenham on the Great Western Mainline itself. So eventually the original order they had at the time for Great Western Railway is they used the original allocation that would have been Class 801s. They decided to renumber them as 800-3s. One big difference between the Class 800 AO2 goes down to the diesel power. The diesel power per engine on the Class AO2 is much more powerful. You've got 940 horsepower per diesel engine, whilst on the Class 800 it only has maximum horsepower of 750. Also the AO2s have larger fuel tanks, especially when it comes to steep hills. Especially like in, especially between Newton Abbot, Totnes and Plymouth and there's like Bodmin Parkway. slowing down to just under 50 miles an hour, about to cross over the St Germans Viaduct. Because we actually followed, actually is not the original when it was first opened, because the actual bit before the St Germans Viaduct we're on dates from 1906. Just about to pass through St Germans, which, like Saltash, you also occasionally get some GWR services from London Paddington that serve here, but just like Devonport, only a few trains a day. Other times it's all the local stoppers from Plymouth to Penzance. Sometimes it can start either Bristol Temple Meads or Exeter St Davis. The local stoppers mostly are Castle's HSTs. Sometimes it can be Class 150s. Sometimes. The other times they are Class 158s. Just a second, a little bit here, guys. Also, with it being October 2022, it's actually going to be 5 years on since the very first Class 800 entered service on Great Western Railway. Now, I know some people 5 years on since they started, and it's been 4 years this year since the Class 802 started on GWR. I understand why some people are still not sold on them, and I totally get it. Are they brilliant? To be honest, they're okay, but nothing much to shout about. Yes, they're much lighter, obviously, HT, but this is what I think some people need to kind of understand here. The trains on GWR are made of aluminium, okay? The HST's carriages are made of steel. Yes, all of them have their flaws. Even the HSTs themselves are not that as durable as you might think. Especially when they found out with those, when they tried to modify the doors for the Mark III carriages, they found that the wiring on one side of the train was a lot different to the other, which made it more difficult for WebTech to do the modifications for the Mark IIIs, obviously for ScotRail, as well as also cross country, and of course Great Western Railway. But regarding the IETs, I know some people are still not sold on the seating. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. I remember putting a photo of the Fair 2101 as yesterday, coming back from my spotting from September 3rd on the intermediate station Bodmin Parkway, and I got a comment from somebody saying, when I was explaining about what my train was going back from Reading to Exeter St Davis, and they said that, like, seriously, how you can tolerate that for like an hour? Yeah, an hour and 45 minutes. Well, I'm used to it. I admit, the IETs, they're not perfect, but it's 2022, not 1976. I get some people, for me personally, I get why people prefer the older stuff than the newer ones. I get it. But unfortunately, I go back to, and I've said it twice before, I've said it on my Greater Angus New voiceover video, I've said it on my recent Q&A, is that whether you like it or not, just like Marmite, we're going to have to get used to it. The trains we're getting now, and I know there's a few examples that may have come out alright. I mean, the Class 745s, for example, they seem to be alright. I don't see much you can complain about them. Okay, yeah, the single door design per carriage, I'm not a big fan of that, personally, but hey, it's what it is. Yeah, they have their software needing problems, but deal with it. Seriously, just deal with it. I know some people refuse to accept it, but I'm afraid that's the year we're living now. I admit, the seats on the IETs, I don't, personally, I'm not a big fan of them. And I get where some people are coming from with that. I know people keep moaning the same thing, saying like, oh, they're not as comfortable as U2S2s. It's like, seriously, I get it, but what do you expect in the year of 2022? What do you expect? They're never going to be as comfortable like they were in the 1970s. Because unfortunately now, we've gone from the era where things were designed for more for comfort, now it's focusing more on capacity. And unfortunately that's the way it is. Anyway, before I carry on, we're just about to pass through a very rarely served Menhiot station. I mean, go back to last year when the IETs had to be withdrawn because of their problems they found with the jacking plates suffering cracks because of fatigue cracks. People, first thing they came to mind saying, oh, can we bring back the HSTs? The fact is that's never going to happen. I just don't get why some people, I mean, I guess, it goes back to my point, I get why some people prefer the older trains to the newer ones. But what I think people are going to have to get used to is that we're not going back to those days again. And some people will be thinking, well, why can't they? Why can't they? It's because the fact their hands, the company's hands are tied. That's one of the problems. So I think for some people who are still not sold in IETs, I mean, I've already seen some trains that have entered service in the past. I mean, take a look at Thameslink Car 700s. I admit, they're not brilliant, but hey, as time has gone by, people have actually got used to them. Yeah, it's never going to be as comfortable like their predecessors, like the 319s, but you just got to deal with it. It's like the Car 387 sometimes, okay, the seating's not perfect themselves, but again, You've just got to deal with it. You know, some people do like the IETs. Or the Azumers. Whether it's on NDR. Whether it's the Paragons on whole trains. Whether it's the 803s from Numo. Like I said, you know, they're not perfect. They all have their issues. In fact, any train that's built, there are always going to be some issues somewhere. Doesn't matter if it's structurally, whether it's software, whether it's, I don't know, compatibility issues. I mean, take a look at the Adventure's problems with the train management control system. That's been a big issue. But we've got to get past it with modern day stuff. When it comes to too much technology, yeah, unfortunately technology is sometimes a bit too far advanced for the systems we've got at the moment. Anyway, we're going to come on to like some of the issues with the IETs just after we get into our first stop at Liskeard, which I would probably explain why the fact that some IETs right now, although it's going to be all of them as well as more, are having modifications down at Eastleigh. Anyway, just about to arrive in, so I've got to start slowing down now. Just crossing over the Liskeard Viaduct, which crosses over the London Valley Line to Lou, which actually goes up, goes round, and it has its own platform, which is on platform 3, just out of shot to your right. And the only way you can connect to the main line is via platform number 2. So here we are at Liskeard. Change for services to Lou via platform 3, which is 1 every 2 hours. In fact, we filmed there recently, back at the end of July. I have to say, it's actually a very nice station. Probably for me, one of the most underrated in Isle of Cornwall. Still got the semaphore signalling, although that's likely due to change over the next few years, because most of the semaphore signalling is due to disappear by the end of next year in December 2023. But it has been on the wall for some time though, let's be honest though. So next stop on our service will be Bodmin Parkway. Just on departure, we're actually coming alongside the A30, which we actually will meet up a little later on, further down the line, which actually diverges from the M5, which actually runs from the M5 junction, I think it's junction 29 or junction 30, one of the two. It runs all the way down to just outside Penzance, which actually could some bit Camborne down further to Land's End. Just crossed over the Moorswater Viaduct, and actually that little line just saw, they actually used to link to Moorswater Depot. Although it's not, it actually used to be a station called Moorswater, which actually used to open in 1879, but it actually didn't have a long lasting life. It closed in 1901, which is now used as a cement terminal. So anyway, back to the issues with the IETs. So what they found, that's in the report that was released by the Office Rail Regulator back in April, that the modifications that's been going on is going to be around where the jacking plates are, which the train's chassis sits on. The problem is that they found the flaw with the design for the Hitachi trains. It turns out it's not just with the IETs. No, it turns out that all Hitachi trains in the UK, including the Zumas, the Paragons, the 803s, the Class 385s, and yes, even the Class 395 Javelins on the South Eastern, are all affected by the issues. So you're probably wondering, well, okay, but what the hell does that mean? Well, what it means is that all of those trains are going to have modifications to all of them. It's a process that's going to take about 6 years to do all of it. Now, Great Western, at the time of this, as I'm recording this, they've got a few sets down somewhere towards Eastleigh. They're getting their modifications right now as we speak. Going to Hitachi, although they didn't publish exactly what the repairs are, but they did say that the process to carry out the modifications takes about 4 weeks just for a 5-car set. So it seems like, based on some of the stories I've read up on, they're going to be probably doing the 5-car set first, and then do the 9 cars after, which in some ways does make sense. In some degree. But the problem is the reason why it's going to take 6 years to do not just GWR but the whole lot of all Hitachi trains and fleet, and also include later the Class 05s, 07s that are due to come for the West Coast Mainline, which eventually the 05s will go to North Wales, and the 07s will be doing Birmingham and Liverpool Lime Street. The Class B90s will still be on West Coast Mainline, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So you're probably wondering, okay, so why the fact of the IETs have been having, all Hitachi trains have been having this problem? Well, it turns out the answer to that is the type of aluminium that trains are made out of. So a normal modern day train, like Class 700, is made out of a Type 6000 aluminium, which is coated in magnesium, which means it's more fatigue proof. However, the Type 7000 aluminium, which is all Hitachi trains use, is more durable, more stronger, but it's more vulnerable to fatigue. Just going into our second of 3 single track sections. The next one after this won't be until just before Penzance. So the thing is that my point with the Hitachi trains is it turns out that when they did the design of them, they thought, well, it's a Type 7000 aluminium, they'll harden up, make the aluminium more stronger. But what they did not foresee, and I think it has been a critical miscalculation, and for someone like Hitachi to make this mistake is kind of astonishing, is that they did not take into account changing weather climates. Now, for me, to some, that might sound quite laughable, but it's true. Also, the parts of the material for the Type 7000 is mixed in with other types of aluminium around where the jacking plate areas are. So when they used to work out exactly what's going wrong here. So what they did, they used one set as a trial to see what's going on, and they fitted, I think it was the 802.007. They fitted it with strain gauges, which is something that a modern train you probably would not expect them to do. But they found where the jacking plate area is. They found that that it was actually going under much more loads than it was originally was designed to do. I think it was about twice the amount of load it should have gone through. Now, some will ask the question is, well, okay, so does that mean the train is not safe then? Well, the reason why Hitachi withdrew the trains themselves is because they feared that if there's some cracks going around the jacking plates area, the worry is that something danger could come up at high speed. Which is why they ordered the withdrawal on May 8th, 2021. But it's not the first time actually this sort of thing has happened, because it's actually happened before, but that was like something like way back in the 1950s. There was a similar type train. One type train was built. They found similar problems. But, you know, the thing is that when the report came out, they did conclude that although modifications are a matter of priority, but it's going to take over 6 years to do, but they did conclude that the train itself, and I know some will find this surprising, but I'm afraid it is true, is that it was declared that the trains were still safe enough once the new inspection procedures were put in place as a temporary precaution. So what does that mean? So what it means that any train that's found with cracks, originally it was a temporary measure, but I think it's still going to be still used now, is that rigorous inspections have been increased. Any trains with cracks around where the jacking plate area is will be taken out of use until the repairs are made. On average, they'd say it'll take about 2 to 3 days. Now the fixes, obviously, as I mentioned, they're going to take about, at least, depending on how long the train is, takes about 4 weeks. I mean, it's easy to go back to when the trains were originally ordered. You have to ask the question is why was the contract only £5 million, say on GWR? But you know, it was only just the first step. The OVRs was the next step. So you know, there is debate about that. It's up for debate, you know, at the end of the day. But that's the way it is. That's how it is nowadays. Trains are getting built more cheaply because everyone's using aluminium. And also the fact is, you know, sometimes when I hear this meme, every time people go and say like, oh, the train is cheap plastic. Well, I'm going to explain something to you. That it's not the first time that meme has been used. In fact, a similar train that used to be on the South Western Railway in the when it used to be Wessex area, which was around the late 80s, early 90s when it was still BR, Network South East, was the Class 442s. When they were put in service, they actually had a nickname called Plastic Pigs. Now, I'm not sure why that name was ever given, but you might find that quite surprising. So anybody goes around saying, well, those trains are cheap plastic, well, just know the fact is the early sign of that meme actually began with the Class 442s. But anyway, enough of what I was saying about the Bears. That's what's going on right now. Also, just to point out something else, that the Class 810 Auroras that you enter on East Midlands Railway, they are effectively a different design altogether. The carriage lengths are 3 metres shorter than a normal IET, and also the reason for that is because 2 sets of 5-car 810s can fit onto the platform at St Pancras, because the platforms for a 24mm carriage, if it was a 10-car set, would not be enough to fit all the train in. So anyway, we're arriving at Bodmin Parkway. Sorry for the bit, I went on a little bit too much. So interchange here for the Bodmin and Wensford Railway. So also at Bodmin Parkway, which actually was opened as Bodmin Road, and the actual name itself dates from 1983. So you've got the line here that goes to, which is the Bodmin Wensford Railway. That was closed to passenger service in 1983, but that was now part of the railway itself, which is now run by volunteers. You also get bus connections to Bodmin itself, Wadebridge and Padstow. So anyway, next stop for our service is going to be Par. Just a quick trip through the Brown Queen Tunnel. Just will move the speed limit through Lostwithiel station. So we are passing through Lostwithiel, which actually used to be the junction for a rolling branch line to call the Fowley branch line, which is the Lostwithiel and Fowley Railway, which actually used to be a broad gauge railway opened in 1869. Which actually just beyond here, we just crossed over the River Fowley itself, and also just around here is where the ferry line used to diverge. So the Fowley branch itself, that used to run to Fowley itself with a stop at Goland. So originally opened in 1869, closed to passengers in 1965. However, it still remains open today for freight use, but only goes as far as Camborne. Just passed over, I think that was the Coombe Viaduct. Yes, it was. So, next tunnel coming up is going to be the Tranverin tunnel. Yes, it's Tranverin tunnel. And then it's going to be kind of a little descent, steep gradient, and then into our next stop at Par. about to arrive into our next stop at Par. A little bit further on than it wants to be. Oh, never mind. So anyway, we're at Par Station, which interchange for services to Newquay by the Atlantic coastline. And in the summer months, on mostly Fridays and Saturdays, you could also get a few trains a day that go directly to from London Paddington. The other times that you also get is service sometimes starting at whether it's Bristol Temple-Meads or Bristol Parkway. Sometimes you get some starting from next to St Davis. Apart from that, the other times you get is one train every few hours subway starting to going to Inform Par, which either will be Castle HSTs or sometimes you get Class 150s. That's most of the time for the local services. So anyway, next stop for us is going to be at St Austell. So we'll go back to cross over the line that links up to Par Harbour, which actually links up to the connection at St Budeaux. You get occasional freighters from St Budeaux. You're going up to Westbury. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Because St Budeaux actually is the signal box, it's the last point you could go on the Cornish line before you go onto the Atlantic coastline to go to Newquay, which actually is token control, by the way, just so you know. I've only been on the Atlantic coastline once, but that was like way back in October 2018. Most times you just get a non-stop service straight up to Newquay. So the stops on the way mostly request stops like Luxor Van, Boogle, Roach and St Budeaux Road, as well as Quintrell Downs. going to start slowing down into our next stop will be St Austell. So here we are at St Austell, which you can alight for bus connections to the Eden project. I've been there once. I went there just after Christmas last year. I'd say it's pretty decent overall. So next stop on our service is going to be Truro. Just coming onto the St Budeaux Viaduct. Actually, this is the longest stretch between stations on the Cornish Mainline between St Austell and Truro. That is around 14.5 miles. Just crossing onto the Coombe St Stephen Viaduct. Excuse me, correct me, that's actually Gover Viaduct, excuse me. Just about to pass through the site of Brunel. So this time around we just passed over the St Stephen Viaduct, now passing over the Fowl Viaduct. Between Bungalow and Truro, there were two stations on the route. So one of them used to be called Grandpound Road, and the other one was Probus and Lardock stations. However, they were closed at the time. Closed around the last one, Probus and Lardock Holt, over to 1908. But closed in 1957. The other one, Grandpound Road, that's been closed since 1964. It's one of several stations on the Cornish Mainline that used to exist, actually, are now long gone. That viaduct we just crossed over was the train gaggle viaduct. We're now about to enter 2 tunnels. The first one is Pero Tunnel, which is followed by Buckshead Tunnel. Just coming up to the Buckshead Tunnel. And we've just got one more tunnel on the main line after still to come, but that won't be until we get around towards Redruth area. So before we get into Truro, we've got 2 viaducts to cross over. I'm going to start slowing down a bit because we've got so down to a 30 mph speed limit into Truro itself. So we go the first of 2 viaducts into Truro. This is the Truro viaduct. And the second one quickly follows after. That will be the Carvendress viaduct. There's Truro signal box, there's the crossing, and arriving into Truro itself. So here we are at Truro, which you can change for services to Falmouth Docks, which in real life one's one train every half hour. Originally used to be hourly, but it's been changed to half hourly. I think it was since 2009 when it added a passing loop, and a second platform. Well, a bit of a story about that. It's a Penwyn. So yeah, so the thing about Penwyn Station on the Maritime Line, as we call it, or the Falmouth Line, is that the platform is actually the same platform, but just like one is stacked on top. So one platform going up towards Truro is at one end, and the platform for trains for Falmouth is at the other. If you ever not been on that line, you probably would have to find it for yourself, but it can be a little bit confusing. So it's not typical like a two-platform layout as you might think it would be. Also, one other fact about Truro itself is the only station in Cornwall that has ticket barriers in operation. So next stop in our service is going to be Redruth. Just passing underneath Highertown Tunnel, and also this is where, on our line, where the Maritime Line trains to and from Falmouth use the down line to go into the platform of Truro. Now it's the junction for the Maritime Line that diverges to the left, and that heads towards its first stop at Penwyn, which also will call that Penwyn is where the passing in for the trains are, Penmere, then followed by Falmouth Town, which serves the town of Falmouth, and then finishing up at Falmouth Docks. Which mostly nowadays is used by Class 150s, although occasionally they do sometimes, recently, on Great Western Railway, can sometimes do two-car Class 158s. Just crossing over Redruth Viaduct. Sorry, not Redruth Viaduct, but not even close. Sorry. Get a bit sidetracked here. That was actually Chasewater Viaduct, because there actually used to be a station called Chasewater, which actually was open part of the Truro and Newquay Railway. But like many other things around Devon itself, Devon and Cornwall, it was also a victim of the Beaching Axe in 1963. There's so much about the Cornish Mainline you have to research on the history side of it. So much of it is very easy to get sidetracked. So apologies for that. Anyway, definitely for sure, next stop is going to be Truro. It's going to be Redruth. He repeated the same mistake again. We just done Truro. Also a bit of facts about Truro itself, also not just the staging side of things, it's actually by far the largest town or actually largest city in Cornwall. I filmed it 3 times, so just haven't had a chance to, as of yet, explore the actual city of Truro itself. Hopefully one day I'll be able to. Just come back alongside the A30. So here we are at Redruth. Next up for us would be at Camborne. So we go on to Redruth Viaduct. Also, there were a couple of branches that used to go around Redruth. You had the Redruth and Penzance southern branches. You also had a branch that used to go to Port Reef. You had a few other stations on here between Cam and including Camborne and just about to, anyway, before I can get on to the next bit, I'm just arriving into Camborne. So here we are at Camborne. There are two intermediate stations, as I was going to say, but at Camborne and Dulcout Halt. They were closed down gradually over time by 1964. So next stop on this service is going to be St Erth, which will also include passing through the next intermediate stop between Camborne and St Erth is at Hale. Just crossing over Camborne Viaduct. We're going to get a speed restriction warning properly pretty soon. Passing through the site of the former Camborne station, which closed at the same time as Camborne and Dulcout Halt in 1964. Just crossing over the Angoric Viaduct. In fact, the original line towards Hell actually used to bypass places like Angoric and Copperhouse Holt. Unfortunately for those two stations, they were also victims of the Beeching Axe. Actually correct that. The fact is the Angoric station actually only had a short life. It only opened in 1843. When the Power Railway opened. But this new station only lasted for a short period of time and it was closed in 1853. Copperhouse Holt closed in 1852. Actually correct that, closed in 1908. We're just passing through Hale now. Just got a slow train down. It's about to go into Hale Viaduct. Which actually is a short distance between stations on here. Apart from earlier, really, from Plymouth to Devonport or to places like Dockyard and Keam. This next bit between Hale and St Erth is only 1.5 miles. Just about to arrive into our penultimate stop on our journey, which is at St Erth, and just to the right is the branch line of the St Ives Bay line from St Ives itself. So, last stop before Penzance is here at St Erth, with services to connection to St Ives, which is also like the Falmouth line, which can be mostly served by Class 150s and sometimes Class 158 two-car sets. So the stations on that line, they got called Lennox Saltines, Lennox, in Carbis Bay, and of course St Ives. Anyway, so one more stop left on our journey, and that of course is Penzance itself. So here we are onto the final single section of track, and now we come alongside the coast. To the left hand side, on the right we're just about to pass through Long Rock Depot. There's the HST sitting inside. This is the furthest southwest you can travel on the rail system by train to Penzance. In a minute we're going to start our final approach into Penzance itself. We got the route indicator into platform 1 at Penzance. And there's another cross-country SST seen on platform 2. It's a rarity these days to get to see cross-country SSTs down at Penzance. Mostly only a few trains a day on cross-country nowadays in real life go to Penzance. Most of them terminate at Plymouth. So we're arriving into our final stop, and that will conclude the series for Train Sim Journey Series 3, which is right here, the southwestern point of the rail network, UK rail network, here at Penzance. And there we are, at Penzance. Anyway guys, that will do for another video, and that will be it for Train Sim Journeys Series 3. So thank you guys so much for watching, like, subscribe, share the video, and until the next video, see you next time. Bye guys.